Hello and welcome back. So I wanted to talk about the Electrum Sabercraft coupler. Now Electrum Sabercraft makes some really cool and interesting designs, but a lot of people like saber staffs, and these things feel really great to use, so I wanted to look at what it would take to make one of these things into a saber staff. And that's where this it was a long time before Electrum Sabercraft actually offered this sucker, but eventually they came out with their own take on the saber staff adapter. So let me talk about this and show you what it looks like. First off, a lot of the older Electrum Sabercraft sabers didn't have screw-off pommels. In order to get the pommel off, you had to remove a set screw and take off the pommel. Now, basically what that meant is there's no threading, and it also sticks into the pommel a fair ways, so the typical approach to saber staff couplers wasn't going to work really well for you. So what they came out with is something that's a tube with set screws in it. So what it does, you put it on there, and they've actually given you 4 set screws on each side of this. So it's pretty secure, which is good because you're not dealing with threading. So if it weren't, you'd have the possibility of one of those screws loosening and then you're throwing half of your saber across a field. But as it stands, 4 set screws. You do have to worry about alignment a little bit, because you have to set that manually. The threads don't stop twisting at a magical point where it's aligned. But there you go. The Electrum Sabercraft's staff coupler. All right, gives you a nice place to hold, maintains the slim profile of these things, has vents in the middle for sound. Get all the nice smooth swing out of there. Okay, the sounds don't fight each other too much as long as you're running the same sound font on each one. Otherwise, it starts to get a little bit garbled. But a very nice design. The only qualms that I have about this design, it's great, but it's on the pricey side. This coupler sells for $50, which is 2 to 3 times what a coupler costs from a lot of other companies, especially considering the fact that there's not a lot of technology in it. It is essentially a tube. Now to prove that, let me show you my homebrew. Originally, this coupler, when I first started to look into it, it was $50, and then they were wanting to charge, for some reason, like $20 in shipping. They fixed that, and the shipping is now a lot more reasonable, but originally they were pricing shipping as per a saber, but it took a while, or I didn't have this coupler for a while until I had a chance to talk to them, but I homebrewed my own out of parts from a hardware store. Now what this is 2 copper tubes and a sink gasket. So this was like $10, something in that neighborhood. I took the sabers into the hardware store until I found something that fit. Now, it could have been a lot less. All I really needed was a tube. Then I could have cut vents in it, but I wanted something that I could actually detach on the fly. And that's one of the downsides of the Electrum Sabercraft coupler. There's no way to detach that on the fly, so you can't unscrew it and then have 2 sabers. You have to pull out a wrench, loosen 8 set screws, reattach 2 pommels in order to have 2 functional sabers. So I wanted something that was a little bit different. So I came up with this one so that I could just pop off the sabers themselves, and I still had a tube that was covering up the outside of the saber, at least marginally. All right, so that was my homebrew solution, and it worked fairly well. I mean, it's a bit inelegant, but a little bit harder to reattach because of the rubber gaskets that make things not fly off. But you can do it without a wrench, which was what I was going for. So my inelegant solution, nope, blocks out the sound a little bit more, but did still accomplish the job. So if you're looking for a coupler for the Electrum Sabercraft, all you really need is a tube. If you want it to be machined to specifically fit that, if you want it to have the sound vents, if you're not particularly handy, you can get theirs. I'm still of the mind that this is a little bit overpriced. Their explanation to that is that they pay their people better, and I can appreciate that, but it's a metal tube. So nice if you want to splurge for it. Not exactly necessary on account of how, like I said, get an appropriately sized tube from the hardware store, drill some set screws into it, and you have essentially the same thing. All right, so that's the Electrum Sabercrafts coupler. Hopefully this review has been of use to you, and I will see you back for more.